amazing chap, our Lucas. We're here today at Synthesized on a beautiful, gorgeous day, but we're going to go inside and hide from the sun and look at some awesome synthesizers and music technology.
Let's go.
John, what have you got here?
It's kind of, I suppose, really what we've got is a collection of what you might call home studio stuff. You know, not the stuff that's not quite a professional gig.
Okay,
You know, it's for your
yeah.
hobbyist, really, isn't it? Your posh hobbyist. And we've got a progression of stuff, really, from an Apple II over there, which is playing a game, an adventure game.
Okay, we'll go and look at that in a sec. Yeah.
So we're playing Apple II music there, you know, through an MT32, which...
Oh, I was going to ask what's doing the music. Yeah,
under there. So most people know what that is.
Yeah, we'll see a couple of those today,
yeah.
I think.
And then obviously as time went on, that was not general MIDI, there was no standardisation about that. It became a de facto standard in some terms.
So did the game come with a MIDI soundtrack?
Yeah, yes it did.
It did?
It
Oh,
did.
which
So
is unusual for the time,
it was
isn't it?
Ultima 5, so it was an adventure game.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. And it's got a jukebox on it that allows you to play all the adventure game music as part of the game, so that's quite good. And then we move on to the first sound module that had general MIDI, which is a Roland one.
What's a general MIDI?
Okay, so it's when all the manufacturers got together and decided that probably started with Roland, to be fair, decided that we're going to keep the piano in the same place and the drums in the same place.
Oh, so like sound 1 is a piano, sound 2 is a string, sound 3 is a bass drum.
That's it.
Oh,
So it
I
meant that
see.
I could create a song with my module and give it to somebody else and they could play that song on their module.
Gotcha.
Prior to that, it was a bit hit and miss, really.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's that. That came in '91, and that was the Yamaha's competition for it, which came out the same year, which is very, very similar.
Yep.
Both really nice modules. You can listen to one in a minute if you want. And then while we're here, we've got this sequencer. So this is something where you would develop a melody, and you would on track 1, you'd copy it over to track 2, and then you start back on track 1 and add the rhythm or the bass or whatever, and keep building up your song. And then when you were happy, you could save it to cassette. Got to remember when this was.
Yeah. So you're not saving the music to the cassette, you're saving the data from that to the cassette.
And then if you want to listen to the music, you can...
Lovely. And what machine is playing that? So
this is our first general MIDI.
So the general MIDI machine.
It's playing Tubular
So
Bells.
you played this song on something else, recorded it on here. So this is like...
I did every part myself and copied it.
Did you? No.
Yes.
Yeah, okay then.
Yeah, so there we are. Yeah, Mike Field had a lot to do with that one. So that's kind of the sound module, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then we move on to, I suppose, something like this. Yes.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Which is kind of band in a box, literally. You know, you take that on a train or whatever. You do your backing tracks and your bass.
Oh, fantastic.
You put your melody on top, and then when you're happy, you bring it home and plug it into your Atari ST or whatever you happen to have. And off you go. I've seen photos of Phil Collins with this in his hand, so unless he's just advertising it.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was paid to do that, but yes.
And here's a machine I know you're familiar with.
Oh, absolutely. It's the X5M.
Was it your 21st birthday? You bought
I got one of these, yes.
Mine's a bit more recent than that, but yeah, so this is a Yamaha MSX1 machine with a built-in FM synthesizer.
So if I remember rightly, it's equivalent to the Yamaha DX9, isn't it?
Yeah, it's DX5, DX9, something like that. Yeah, so the budget end of the DX series, I suppose. And we've got a little play around with this. So this is the MIDI recorder software, which is this package here.
Yeah.
So this cartridge plugged in.
Yeah.
And if we play that, just turn it up a bit.
Yeah.
5 or 6 MIDI channels being used there on a single track, handled by Z80 from 1985, and I think it's pretty cool.
I think that is. So that's a software version of what this hardware machine is here. That's really good. I like it. Musical interlude. Super. Well, thank you. Can we have a look at your Apple as well?
Let's do that. It's just an adventure game. But as part of that game, you get the option of of doing a jukebox of the tunes. So this is all the music that's in the game.
Yeah.
It's right to you on the MT32. Probably shouldn't have pressed that, never mind.
You've broken it now,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And away we go. Shall I
And if we
turn
were
it up?
near the speakers,
You'd be able to hear that.
we'd be able to hear that.
So it's
Right.
not particularly exciting, but that's kind of where it started with that kind of MT32.
Gotcha.
Really. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, John.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you. This is Matt Evans, and what have you got today? What have you got to show us?
So I've got an old Mac, 68K Mac running Cubase. It's Cubase 2.5 for those playing along at home. An Akai S2000 XL sampler,
Yep.
which is kind of 95, slightly more developed version of the quite famous samplers that are used for 80s hip hop stuff and so forth. So the S900, S950 were kind of same sort of shape. This one's got a nice screen, you can edit samples on it more easily and so on. There's a kind of a SCSI emulator thing.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that in a second. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's controlled over MIDI from the Mac.
Now, it's interesting that you've got a Mac here, because in the other room we've got a couple of Atari STs running Cubase,
Yep.
and the Mac isn't a machine you would normally associate with this.
Yeah, so I remember talking to Jason of the museum a long time ago and saying,
Yeah.
oh, we should do a setup with the Mac and sampler and things like that. And he completely scoffed at the idea and said, that's ridiculous. No one would have had a Mac in a studio. They're way too expensive, you know what I mean? It's
Right, okay, yeah.
Incorrect. These machines were very, very expensive in 1989. I'm
Compared with an Atari ST, they would have been, wouldn't they?
Absolutely, yeah. There's thousands and thousands. It might even
Yeah.
have been 10 times the price of an
Good
ST.
heavens.
So,
Right, yeah.
so yeah, absolutely. But you know,
it
maybe
look-
by the
I mean,
sort of
it looks like
mid-90s,
Cubase.
by the time
Yeah.
this came out, then you know there were some Macs in studios, but they would have been the most more well-appointed ones. Anyway, so
Yes.
MIDI from the Mac,
Right.
MIDI from a modern controller keyboard
Yep.
through modern to old adapter.
Oh, yeah. Can we have a closer look at that? So, quickly, what's going on here?
So this is a modern. I bought this fairly recently, MIDI controller thing. So this is keys to MIDI out. It
So the
doesn't
only-
make any sound itself.
So the only output of this is a USB connection.
USB MIDI, right? And you're
Right.
supposed to plug it into your laptop, and you're supposed to make,
Yeah.
this season's hottest, hottest hits. So yeah, it's just a source of information, effectively. The problem is, though, it's just MIDI only. A lot of controller keyboards, especially older ones, they existed with old MIDI connectors.
Yeah, an old MIDI is the 5-pin DIN
5-pin
connection
DIN,
that's since the
this sort of
1980s.
thing. Exactly.
Yeah. So that converts USB into old school MIDI and allows you to talk
Exactly.
to the other equipment.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So
interesting.
instead of using this with a laptop, I can use it
Yeah.
with the old Mac. So old Mac has got MIDI in from this,
Yeah.
and what you're hearing is MIDI going into the Mac and back out again.
Oh yeah, and in fact I can see the lights going on and off
Yep.
there. Yep.
So it's transmitting stuff back out, and depending on what channel we're on, this is
So
controlling
it's
one
playing.
of these things. I don't know. Oh no, sorry, yeah, it's this. Okay, so we have a. This is a
the-
Behringer. This is also a Behringer. This
So
is a
that's a
303
not
clone.
TB303. It's a nearly TB303.
This is a clone, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was complaining to someone that they've cloned the analog side of it, which makes quite kind of cool noises, and
Yeah.
you can get all the squeaky sort of acid sounds.
Yeah.
But they've also cloned the horrible sequencer user
Yeah,
space,
we had a
is
real
just-
TB303 a couple of years ago, and I made a competition that could anybody program
They're
something
just
into
they're
it.
no fun to use.
No,
They're no fun to
absolutely
use at all.
impossible.
So, but they sound nice. So it's really nice as a MIDI controller.
It's that classic late 80s, early 90s acid house
Squeaky,
sound, isn't
squeaky.
it? Yeah.
I was suggesting that because there was such a pain to a previous conversation, pain
Yeah.
to program them. So people would just mash at the buttons, and then there'd be some random notes. Make it run really fast and play with the filters, and you've
Yes,
got acid.
and
so
yes. Yeah,
That's
almost
what-
not
I
being able to
think the
program
genesis
it
of it.
created a whole genre of music, didn't
Yeah.
it? But you don't have that problem because you're driving it from this and
exactly.
that.
So it's just making sounds. Sound out to mixer. Similarly with the RD6, which is a 606 clone, I guess. It's quite nice. It doesn't have the 808 resonant bass drum, tunable bubble, and it doesn't have the cowbell sound, but everything else is fine. And this is a microbrute, so this isn't a modern Arturia thing, and this is an analog synth, effectively, MIDI-triggered analog synth.
Absolutely.
And it can do, funny-sounding, squeaky things.
Yeah. It's 1990 all over again, isn't it?
Yeah. But the more interesting thing for me, at least, was this all started when I got the Akai accidental eBay purchase. It was
Right,
broken.
yeah, these things happen.
Very
yeah.
cheap, broken, been dropped on its face and everything was smashed, and
Right.
so
Oh,
a
wow.
few repairs and so on.
Wow. Okay.
So I always thought the sample as kind of the incredibly distorted sort of vocals on electronic music and drum samples and loops and so forth. Yes, sure, you can sample something and you can chop it up and you laboriously scroll back and forth and extract a section and time stretch it and so forth.
Yeah.
So you can do all of that. But the thing I hadn't realised is they also sort of position this as an instrument of its own right, so a sound module. So a whole load of CDs that I've got loaded onto the SD card.
Oh yeah, I see down there, sound effects.
Which are various, pipe organ or Fender Rhodes or samples from real Steinway grand piano. So they'll take a number of different samples from up an octave. They'll take different velocities, and then the machine will blend them all together and make.
So if you're in a studio and you don't want to drag in a Steinway grand piano, you have one of these instead, and it's got one in there.
Yeah. So I can see the attraction of having one CD that's got 800 different instruments on it, and at a push it's going to stand in for a lot of those. And to be honest, it sounds really great for some of the. Even some of the kind of FM synths, it's got a lot of DX7 sounding things on there. The purists will hate that I've just suggested the sampler can recreate DX7, but to my untrained ear, it sounds pretty good. Yeah. But you can load up, they call it a program, but a patch of your Steinway Grand or your jazz drum kit or whatever it is, plus another patch of maybe you've got drum samples from something else or you've got vocals or something, and you can overlay them. You can run them on different MIDI channels. So effectively you can say, this is 10 different sound modules just like this, just from software. So it's quite flexible.
So go on, show us how you'll like this, Pete.
Well,
this.
Okay, so wait. Let me take you through the back panel before we get to the wonderful bit. Nice sampler. 8 different outputs as well as the normal sort of stereo outputs. So if you've actually got a desk in a real studio environment, you can do even different drums on different channels, EQ them differently, and so on.
Perfect.
Or reverb effects and so on. Anyway, so it's normally got a SCSI hard disk inside.
Right.
So as in the day you would have had a SCSI hard disk. Usually a zip drive a lot of people were using, so you'd have a big pile of 100 meg zip disks that you'd be swapping around, different projects on each. So instead of that, I don't have a hard drive in this at the minute, and I needed to get something working to push. This is the Blue SCSI, but it's the Blue SCSI is based on the STM32 little blue pill board there.
That is awesome.
But this is
this
sort of
is emulating a SCSI hard disk.
Exactly, yeah. And it's using the Blue SCSI firmware. So the Blue SCSI is a project. It's a SCSI hard disk replacement with a SD card sort of thing. So you can order the boards and you can buy PCBs to do this. But this was I very much approve. I really want to get this working. Thanks, mate. Your approval means everything.
The box, I think, is
yeah. This is you've got to give the professional kind of touch to these sorts of things. So it's actually, I thought this would last about a day. It's actually been fairly robust.
You're still going to be on 10 years' time, don't you?
Probably don't need to replace this.
No,
it's okay
not really.
So far. I'm going to try and do a USB link to it as well. So I'm going to some of the other SCSI emulators based on Pipe Ecos and USB and so forth. So my ideal would be have the laptop be able to transfer files, back up and so forth live without having to shut the machine down, unplug it, take the SD card out.
Yes.
SD cards are just so fiddly, so being able to plug USB and access that would be nice.
Well,
so
fantastic stuff.
With that, I will make some wonderful music.
Thank you very
much.
Tomorrow we'll have to come back to hear it all in operation. Hello,
I'm Sheila.
Sheila Dixon. Hello.
Hi.
Are you having a good event?
It's great so far.
Super. Right, what have we got here then?
I thought this time I'd celebrate the SID chip, the famous SID chip from the Commodore 64. So
absolutely. So that is the sound chip that's built into the Commodore 64, and we all know from the games we've
Three
played.
voices, very distinctive sound, much loved. Even today, people are writing music better than ever. For it. So I brought along a real Commodore 64 with real SID chip and set it up as a SID jukebox, so people can select a SID and have a listen and hear that. But I've also brought along my project, which is to connect together. This is my mad scheme: connect together 6 SID chips to give 18 voices.
Good Lord. Okay.
And thus cover all of the 16 channels in a MIDI
so
file.
what's in each one of these little boxes?
Well, I build these. This is the MIDI SID, which takes 2 SIDs or SID replacements, and MIDI in, so that you can use it with a keyboard or a DAW, or play in a MIDI file, and it will do its best to render
So do you have to sacrifice a Commodore 64 to get the SID chip, or are there modern replicas of it?
It will take real SIDs, but to be honest, I build these with modern replacements.
Right, okay. So no Commodore 64s are harmed
No,
in the making of these? Okay.
Harmed in the making of these. I mean, they're getting rare and expensive now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking.
I can't afford, £300 worth of real SIDs to fill this. So, no, these are Swin SIDs that I'm using.
So the SID's got 3 channels. How many SIDs are there per one of these?
2 in each one. So I've hooked together 3 of these, giving 6 SIDs, 18 voices.
18 voices.
That's right.
Good
and so
Lord.
we can play in a SID file, a .mid file.
Yeah.
16 channel, and it's distributed between these. Each one is doing its best to render half a dozen of those channels.
Yeah.
And
can we hear it? Is it going on the?
We should do. Bear with me. Sit there music today isn't auto repeating. Oh, there we go. You can see we've got quite a few MIDI channels being used.
Yeah.
And,
that is awesome.
And you
it
can
is
see
an
from the lights
orchestra
here how that's being distributed among them. I've got a little bit of faux stereo going on here as well. This one is set so that the outputs from its SIDs are all in the middle.
Yeah.
And these have 2 SIDs each that are going to the left and the right. So by cleverly distributing the MIDI channels, we've got a bit of stereo going on with a centre, left and right.
Wonderful.
So I'd like to build one device that has all of the 6.
And then you want 3 of those. And I can't do the maths, but that's going to be a lot of channels. Yeah.
Maybe
Oh, fantastic. Right, I've just realised I didn't introduce you to begin with, so hello, Sheila Dixon. And thank you very much for coming today.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you. We're with Jonathan Pallant, and what's going on here?
Well, today I want to talk about the history of PC sounds.
Okay.
Topic I've been talking about before. We got a few upgrades this time. So for me, PC sound wasn't really interesting up until about 1987. The IBM PC shipped with a single PC speaker. It's a single channel square wave connected to a code
Is it a
speaker.
buzzer, or is it better than a buzzer? Is it just a single?
So most PC cases had kind of the 8-tone cone speaker.
Yeah.
So it's a little step up from a sort of a piezo buzzer, but not really. It's square waves fed through a case.
Yeah.
So we've got games like even as late as 1991. So here we've got Duke Newcombe for the PC.
Okay, yeah, classic.
And then we'll start a new game, and there's no music, and there's just. So the sound will be coming from the PC.
Oh, so the
speakers.
chirping's all the way over here.
Yeah, in the case somewhere down the bottom there's the. And we can
Stick
run
our
around,
roving microphone in there, but
we can
yeah,
jump, but it's not a great experience.
No, that was no.
And this is as late as 1991, and this is id Software, and that's
as good as it gets, right?
Which is weird because in 1987. A music synthesizer card was released for the PC, the AdLib music synthesizer, Yamaha FM synthesizer chip on an ISA card. Some games supported it, Duke Newcombe apparently didn't, but Wolfenstein 3D did. So if we go over to Wolf 3D.
Oh, and in fact, yeah.
So we got some music going on. So that's definitely an improvement on the PC speaker.
Yeah, definitely.
Not a lot in the way of sound effects with your AdLib cards. It's just the FM synthesizer. So
that's like so is it a 2-op FM synthesizer?
Whereas the later upgraded one was upgraded to a 4 operator, but
which is what John's CX5M over there has got the 4-op version. Okay, which kind of makes these sort of buzzy. Chirpy sounds. It's all right, isn't it?
Shots are going to be like a snare on a drum kit rather than sort of a sampled one. Creative Labs fixed that. I think in around 1990, they produced the Sound Blaster.
I remember that.
The legendary PC sound card. They stole AdLib's lunch because they made their card perfectly AdLib compatible and then added a sound effects channel. So then the games. So actually, Wolfenstein 3D is a Sound Blaster game. So we've got the music, but we've also got. We've got
the gunshots. Yes.
And we'll get out of that.
So basically, we've got a noise channel, haven't we?
We can actually play sort of little snippets of sample audio, voices, things like that. And then also in 1987, we had the AdLib Roland came out with the MT32. I know you're very familiar with this. I think this is actually yours.
This is my Roland MT32 down here.
So the Roland MT32 is this sort of famous sound synthesizer, which shouldn't really have affected the PC game market much. It was very expensive new, $700 in 1987.
Which is probably as much as the PC would have cost.
Yeah, I would have thought so, yeah. But Sierra had one. So the developers at Sierra Games had one, and they loved writing music for it. If you think, well, your alternative is the PC speaker or the ad-lib, then
Whereas this is, I mean, I own one. It's a proper synthesizer, isn't it? It's based on the same technology as the Roland D50, which was a very expensive synthesizer back in the time.
So let's see if we can get. Soft MPU is already good. That's already loaded. So I've got Police Quest, which is the first in the series, and this is a PC speaker game. So that's all you got on Police Quest 1.
That's not very impressive.
It's not a lot of fun. So we'll then try and quit out the game. File, quit. I don't know how to play the Police Quest games. It's a baffling user interface.
Right.
But then if we go into Police Quest 2, and then we've got, I think the MT32 is happy. Oh, I need to plug it in.
As with all good demos,
I've got 5 things and only 4 inputs in my mixer.
Ooh!
Yeah.
That is quite a step. That's a step forward, isn't it?
Quite a step up from Police Quest 1 to Police Quest 2.
Let's just record a bit of that. Yeah, that's a proper synthesizer.
Yeah. You know, that's the $700 1987 experience. Most people didn't get that, which is why they're highly sought after today. Because people used to see the option in the video games, like, I wonder what that sounds like. That's the premium one that I haven't got.
So that's why these little tingers are still expensive, isn't it? Because gamers want them.
People want to go back and relive that.
Right.
So today what I've done is I've brought an alternative. If I plug the power in over here, I've got the MT32 Pi. So this is a Raspberry Pi running special firmware, and it emulates an MT32. And we've been playing with them today, and these two basically sound exactly the same.
You did a test, didn't you, on me about an hour ago?
Yeah.
And I've owned one of these since I was 20. I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Astonishing recreation.
It does rely on obtaining legal access to the original Roland ROM files.
So you have to own an M32 first before you can, which of course you do and everyone does.
And the instructions say we can't tell you where to find the ROM files, but
that's what Google's
that's a solvable problem. Yes. But that's why it's such an authentic emulation, because it's doing what the original hardware did.
It is very impressive and a lot cheaper.
Yes. And then really 2 more kind of points in the timeline. Gravis, Advanced Gravis, produced a card called the Gravis Ultrasound in 1992. It's an improvement on the Sound Blaster because it can mix samples in hardware. 256K RAM, you load the samples into the card, and then it's able to mix them together. It takes a bunch of work off the CPU.
And the samples would be samples of instruments and
sound effects and all that kind of stuff. So if we go to Epic Pinball, and if I run the setup program and tell it I have a Sound Blaster, it says, how fast is your processor? The faster the computer you've got, the better sound you're going to get in Epic Pinball. It's going to up the sample rate. Whereas if I tell it I've got a Gravis Ultrasound, it doesn't ask the question.
Because a lot of the work is put over to the card.
I can get Pentium quality sound on a 386 because the card's doing all the work. So beloved by the demo scene programmers because it does a bunch of work for you. Some games supported it, but it got a bad rap because it wasn't very Sound Blaster compatible. It sort of claimed it, but it did emulation of a Sound Blaster in software. And the games programmers always break the rules and love to touch the hardware directly. And these kind of software workarounds never work very well. But we can have a listen to a Gravis Ultrasound on here. I don't have a Gravis Ultrasound because, again, they're super expensive.
Yeah.
So what I've got is a card called the Pico Gus. Someone has taken a Raspberry Pi Pico, put it on an ISA expansion card, and programmed it to emulate a Gravis Ultrasound.
Fantastic.
Very faithfully.
Let's record a little bit of that as well.
Now again, an original Gravis ultrasound's going to run you probably a couple of £100. The Pico Gus is about 50 quid.
Now, I might be wrong here, but is it the Gravis, the one that uses an EMU chip? Is it the...
No, Gravis, the early ones used, I can't remember, I think it was an AMD chip, and then later an Interwave chip.
Right.
The EMU came in with the final interesting thing that happened.
Am I skipping ahead here? Sorry.
Yeah, there was one more interesting thing happened. 1994, Creative Labs do their final real upgrade to the Sound Blaster. I mean, they continue to make them now.
Yeah.
But the last one that matters to me was the OR32.
Right.
A Sound Blaster 16 with an EMU 8000 synthesizer
EMU.
engine.
There we go.
Yeah.
There's the EMU.
So then you got an equivalent kind of quality to the Sound Canvas, kind of the MT32 successor. You've got samples in RAM, but it's kind of MIDI compatible. Weirdly, you needed special game support. Not all games support the OR32, but the ones that do sounds pretty great. So in this game here, Tyrion, we can put it in ad-lib mode, and it's sort of not terribly... I love this game because it's got a jukebox built in. So ad-lib mode's kind of fine, but then you switch to OR32 mode. Really very impressive sounds.
It's very impressive, isn't it? Yeah.
But that was kind of the last interesting thing to happen in PC hardware, because the CD-ROM came along. Once games started coming on CD, you didn't need to write a MIDI soundtrack and get it to work on 6 different kinds of sound cards.
You just record the music to the CD and...
So we started with Duke Newcombe, 1991, PC speaker. Wolfenstein 3D in 92 supports the ad-lib and the Sound Blaster. Doom in 93 starts to support these external MIDI modules, the MT32 and General MIDI. And then Quake doesn't support any FM synthesis at all.
Wow, right, and that's
9-inch nails on the CD, and that's your lot. That's all you got.
And that's, the end of the sound card, basically.
Once we've got 16-bit stereo audio and the processor's fast enough to do all the work.
They can record the music in a recording studio as opposed to having to recreate it on your machine.
Yep, MP3s come along, and discs just get bigger, and so the end of the PC as a synthesizer kind of came to an end. Of course, these days people use their PC as a synthesizer, but it's all done in software.
Yes.
For me, the interesting thing are these kind of cards you had to add between 87 and 94.
For the days when the CPU wasn't powerful enough to emulate everything in software.
And I guess it's kind of a sort of similar to graphics maybe, where for a while it kind of mattered which graphics card you had and they were all different, but now they all broadly do the same thing, so it kind of became standardized. So there we go, the history of PC sound.
Wonderful, thank you very much, Jonathan.
No problem at all.
Great stuff.
See you again.
We're here with Mitch Johns. Have you brought enough stuff, Mitch?
No, there's never enough stuff.
Never enough stuff.
No, honestly, I really went into this with the intention to be,
minimal,
bared down, minimal, make life easy for myself, and I completely and utterly failed.
Is this why you texted me late last night to ask if you can have a second table?
Yes.
So
it was about 11 o'clock or something.
It was indeed, yeah. Okay, so what the hell is going on here?
Quite a lot, so I'll break it down into little bits so it's easier to understand.
Right.
The main reason I wanted to bring this stuff is because I'm really interested in the Second World War era cipher machine, code breaking, secret codes via radio and tele typewriters and stuff. So
which is what's going on here?
So I brought one of these along, which is currently not working, but I will be restoring this one. So this is a teleprinter. This is how you send emails before the internet was even thought of.
So what year are we talking here?
We're talking, this is like 1940 something. I don't actually think this is a 50s machine, but they're pretty much the same in the 40s.
Good Lord. Yeah.
And so what it does is it sends letters in a code down a wire or over the radio to another one of these, and then it prints out on a piece of paper.
All electromechanically. It's not digital at all, is it?
But basically you have the equivalents of different modular parts of a computer in this, but electromechanically.
Okay.
So this bit here is a parallel to serial converter. And over here is a serial to parallel converter.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
But mechanical. It all runs off this big 250 volt motor. Amazing thing. Totally amazing. And this is the code that it that it translates these letters into a 5-bit code. They wouldn't call it bits back in those days. They would call it holes and spaces or impulses. This is how they used to store it on this paper tape over here. So before they had floppy disks and stuff, they had literally punched the information on a piece of tape, on a piece of paper, and that's someone's letter to their gran or something on that tape. And so what I've done is I've taken all of that technology, all that idea of the binary information, and I've made it musical.
I was going to say, where does music come into this?
So, as you can see on the keyboard here, there are a load of letters and things. And this all corresponds, if you could look, all of the same stuff.
Oh, so you've made your Prophet 6 keyboard into a teleprinter keyboard?
I did. Yeah, but in the form of a chromatic scale.
As you do,
So every letter or character is a semitone, okay?
Right.
And it sends it out of this keyboard as a control voltage.
Yep.
Which you can then plug into other synthesizer modules and control things like pitch or anything else, the cut of a filter or something.
Yep.
But the next stage is that I have made a cipher machine for it. Which is the way that they used to encrypt telegraph messages, so that when they sent them, they couldn't be read by someone you didn't want them to be read by. And then at the other end, they have another cipher machine that decrypts it to turn it back into the normal plain text, so you can read it.
And this is kind of where Colossus and the Enigma stuff comes in.
Absolutely. So Colossus, which was the first programmable electronic computer. People are very exact about getting right. Was created to crack exactly the algorithm that's used in this. So the first ever computer was made because of these cipher machines.
Right.
So we're in the right place for it.
Yep.
So the application musically is that you're obviously converting letters into pitches. So if I play a pitch here, I can then encrypt it the same way you would with text.
So you haven't changed what you're playing, but the music is now encrypted in the same way that it would have been encrypted as a cipher in the Second World War.
Exactly the same way. And you can even see on these lamp boards that I've made, where it's representing it as the letters.
Yep.
You can see the input and the output as well.
Extraordinary.
So you're getting variations in the melody by encrypting it exactly the same way as they would.
Are they using the same sort of encryption process that they would have done
exactly the same
with the cogs and dials in an Enigma machine?
Bitwise, exclusive or modulo to
in fact, which is there's a truth table for that.
Truth table for that there,
Okay,
it's
awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we've got that. These are basically a teleprinter in your modular case, complete with a bell.
You put a bell on it.
An electromechanical bell on the back.
Yep. So that's the teletype bell. Yeah.
So we've got that. So that's kind of a way of using this for melody.
Yes.
The sound that we're actually listening to is being generated in this rack down here.
Okay.
So we've got a normal kind of modular synth voice. So like
that's a nice former BT rack you've got there.
Yes, it is. It's very nice. It's an oscillator and filter and stuff.
Yep.
But it's all going through another one of the cipher machines, exactly the same as.
Right.
Okay, and so this one is sampling it and converting the analog output of this oscillator into binary information, encrypting it while it's in binary, then converting it back to an analog output. It's happening at audio rate, so it's becoming a wave shape.
Yes.
So we can listen to that. If I turn the filter cut off up here.
I can hear the waveform changing. Yeah.
It is on the oscilloscope as well. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's a load of different ways. There's a load of different controls you can do to wave shape it in different ways.
Yep.
How you like. You can plug in. I don't have to do it with my hand, for example. I could plug in the output of an oscillator into the key stream, and then it will do it for me automatically. Kind of stuff like that.
Mesmerising just watching that display.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Love the old oscilloscopes. So that's it in the kind of timbre domain, what you can do with the cipher machine. And then we also have it doing rhythm. So we were talking about that binary information. So on the paper tape, you could read the code across this way and translate that to a number, which could translate into a pitch or something.
Yes.
But you could also read everything this way.
So almost like the drum loop thing in Cubase or something, where you plot the
like a piano roll or something. You know? So you can use each channel running vertically to trigger drums.
Fantastic.
So here I have an analog to digital converter, and that's being plugged into the inputs of the drum machine. And so if I do this, I've unplugged a couple of things. So now we have clock information coming off of the paper tape. Which is clocking this Turing machine, which is looping around a sequence. That sequence is going into the cipher machine, being encrypted, going to the analog to digital converter, breaking out into individual bits, and then those individual bits are triggering the drums. And then oh, come on, where are they? So the drum machine is conked out, but it's okay because we have some electromechanical relays that we can use for rhythms instead. So get your microphone in there, and then
indeed, you can hear the rhythm, and it's so each relay corresponds to one. So you've got 5 relays, you've got 5 across there.
Yep, exactly. So each relay is a channel of the telegraph code. And I can encrypt the telegraph code just like before. And it will do a different rhythm.
A different rhythm.
Because it's different letters that it's doing in sequence.
Oh, yes. Extraordinary.
And obviously, it's a bit more easier to pick up with a drum machine. But
no, we can hear it. We can hear the change in the click of the relays. Well, as ever, Mitch, absolutely fascinating stuff. Yeah, awesome. You,
Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Oh, our pleasure, our pleasure. Yeah, absolutely unique. Well, thank you very much. We're in the noisy synthesizer room now, so I apologise for any background noises. I'm here with Keith Catley, who has this wonderful selection of drum machines here. So, let's start with, what's this wonderful wood thing here? Where would we know this from?
This is the Roland CR78 CompuRhythm. It was actually the first programmable drum machine.
Okay.
It had 4 memories for programming. You need a separate switch to program it, which I don't have. You can do it by a roundabout way, but it's a bit difficult.
Right.
So this was used, it came out in 1978. So used by people like Brian Ferry, Roxy Music, Jealous Guy, Same Old Scene. Used by Blondie on Atomic and Hearts of Glass.
Oh, wow, right.
But mainly for me, used by Gary Newman, Me to Smile, and various others. John Fox, the entire Metanatic album. And John Fox was famous for this metal beat sound. So this high metallic sort of sound.
Yeah, I recognise that.
Called Metal Beat.
Right.
But it was also used by Phil Collins.
In the Air Tonight. Cool.
But this mainly has preset rhythms, but you can combine them together to get really weird mixes. But it just sounds beautiful.
It does. A very unique sound because it's all analog, isn't it? There's no samples of sounds, it's all generated.
These 3 machines here were the early period of my collection. So this one, the Korg Mini Pop 7, is the Jean-Michel Jarre machine from 1966. So instantly oxygen territory.
Absolutely.
Again, different rhythms to use.
Now, is this one programmable?
No, not programmable.
So this is kind of to go with your big organ, isn't it?
That was the original intent.
To give you rhythms over the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so Jean-Michel Jarre, isn't it wonderful?
Well, it's this sound here, really. You know.
That one, What's that supposed to be?
Well, it's supposed to be a... Don't know how you pronounce it.
No, I don't know what that is. A So almost what they've done here is they've picked a really obscure instrument because no one's going to say, well, that doesn't really sound like a... No.
That's it, so you can't tell. But I always thought that Jean-Michel Jarre synthesised those sounds on a synthesizer.
Yeah.
And then when I realised that he just pressed play, I almost felt a little cheated. But
yeah,
it's a beautiful machine, I love it. And it's actually got a bit of punch in the...
Yeah, it has. It's a fantastic sound. And again, it's all analogue, isn't it?
All analogue.
Yeah.
So that was 66. That was 78. This chord rhythm machine, then this was, I think, 1980 or 81.
Okay.
This particular one is the B variant, which came in 83.
Right.
And as such, that's probably one of the last analog drum machines really made.
It's a beautiful looking thing. Yeah.
This was used by Depeche Mode on photographic and various of their early.
Oh, okay.
But I think at the moment it's set up for the preset used by Joe Jackson on Step Again. The tempos.
Oh! Dude, I'm not going to try. Yes, but absolutely. Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, fantastic.
But again, Depeche Mode used it. And Alex Ball's done a terrific video about recreating the Depeche Mode sound. And the bass drum, they didn't use the bass drum, and you can turn the volume down. They used the 2600 for the bass.
Right. Okay.
They used the snare and the hi-hats from most of that.
So, awesome.
So up until 78, 79, 80, this was what drum machines sounded like.
Yes. Then let's go.
So this is the Lynn LM1 drum computer. And Roger Lynn, who made it, is very specific. It was a drum computer, it's not a drum machine. And he wanted to separate it from those kind of things to make it something.
So no built-in bossa nova rhythms on this. No, this is not a home accompaniment thing for an organ. This is a
real knockoff.
Yeah.
This was the first synth to actually have recordings of real drum sounds stored in memory.
So if we were to open the lid, we would find lots of ROM and EEPROMs.
Discrete EEPROMs, one for each sound. So, for example, bass drum, hi-hat.
And these are, in most cases, recordings of real drums.
Recordings of real drums, obviously.
As opposed to the synthetic recreations on the previous
Exactly,
machine.
and this was the first machine that did that.
Yeah.
Came out in 1980, same time pretty much as a Fairlight CMI.
Okay.
Cost the price of a car back then.
Yeah, I would imagine.
500 made. This one was serial number 110. So it's relatively early. They came in 3 revisions. First revision, first one's made in Roger Lynn's garage.
Right.
This is a Rev 2. You can tell because it's got the engraved names on the buttons.
Yeah.
But it's a relatively early Rev 2. And then the Rev 3s came along a bit later on. They saved money by taking off some of the interfacing on the back.
Okay.
So the sync stuff.
And it's got, he can show you, it's got lots of sockets and knobs and controls on the back.
And sync out on this.
Yeah.
The Rev 3s didn't have all of that. So they were harder to sync to anything.
Yeah.
It was pre-MIDI, obviously, in 1980. But the interesting thing is that the difference between them is this play sound. On the early ones, the Rev 1s, Rev 2s, they had play.
Yeah.
And the Rev 3s, they had a rim shot.
Right.
And the rim shot, if you tune it right down, is the Prince knock. Unfortunately, I can't do the Prince knock sound on this machine.
Yeah.
I've got the play, but never mind. That's basically that machine. And then when Roger Lynn brought that out in 1980, only 500 made.
Yeah.
He then went on to make the Lynn drum, its successor. Which unfortunately my one is broken, so I wouldn't
eaten by its battery. Yeah, you were telling me. Yeah, sadly.
Need repairing.
Yeah.
But the other manufacturers then had to come out with their answer to this. And the first, I think, off the blocks was Oberheim with the Oberheim DMX. This is actually an Oberheim DX, which is a slightly cheaper version. This came out in 1983. The DMX, I think, came out late 1980. And the difference is that the DMX has one card in a slot for each individual sound. whereas the DX was a cheaper version. It's just got one board with all the chips on it.
Oh,
Other than that, they're very, very similar.
Yeah.
And this, the DMX and the DX chip sounds are pretty similar. This was a machine, well, the DMX was famously used by New Order.
Oh, yes.
Blue Monday.
Yes,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And also used by Sisters of Mercy. Dr. Lunch was
of course,
DMX for a while. It's been various things over the years. But, and then the answer from sequential circuits to this.
So we've got Lynn, we've got Oberheim, we've got,
the drum tracks.
Yep.
Very similar machine. Again, a cheaper version, so I think these cost about £1,000 when they were new. But what was unique about this machine was that you could individually tune every note of the pattern.
Right, which gives you a lot more flexibility. Yeah.
So, you know, it says it's got 2 toms, but actually it's only got one sample. But there are 2 tunings of it on buttons. But because you can tune it for each pattern, you can make a roll all the way around the kit on it. The only famous uses of this that I'm really aware of are Ultravox on the Lament album.
Okay.
Called White China, where it uses that tuning up of all the way up. Very nice. The other unique thing, well not unique, the other thing about it is that it uses the same type and size of EPROM chips as the Lynn drum, the successor to the other. So people could swap them into.
That's what I was wondering, because these are digital drum machines. You could, in theory, anyone could play the sounds of the other one if you knew how to transfer the data.
Some of the drum tracks have the same chips.
Yeah.
And read the data out the same way.
Yeah,
so
okay.
they were compatible. And there was then a big business built up in selling chips, you know, replacement chips for these. But this was a good way of getting the Lindrum sounds or whatever on a budget.
Yeah.
And then the answer to the Lindrum from EMU Systems was the
over here.
Drumulator over here. So again, Drumulator, very similar. Unfortunately, again, to economise, they did some clever things with how they programmed the chips. There are only 4 chips in here, so there isn't a chip per voice, which means that it's actually a bit more difficult to swap them, but there are different kits you can get. But it's a very nice machine, very punchy, used by Howard Jones.
Right.
The new song was this, used by Debbie Schmoder, and various others. This one, the Kawai R100, was from 87.
Gosh, was it that long ago?
87,
Wow, that actually makes me feel quite old, because I think of this as quite modern.
Yeah, so do I actually, And this is a really nice machine. It's touch-sensitive pads. The harder you hit them, the louder.
Fantastic,
It's got 3 banks of different sounds.
Because by now memory is cheaper, so we can have more sounds inside this thing.
Separate outputs as well, and a card slot. So, very nice machine. Very aggressive sound, actually, very punchy. Used by a lot of EBM, dance type, industrial.
Well, you said we're moving into that era, aren't we?
And they also did a smaller version called the R50 and the R50E. And the R50E has an electronic, even more electronic sound set in it.
Yeah.
It sounds really awesome, like Simmons type sounds.
Okay,
And then we've got the TR707. I can't remember what year that was from. 1984.
Right.
So this one's earlier than that one. This was Roland's first all-sampled drum machine.
Of course, because the TR-808 is...
The 808 was all analog.
Which is,
The 909 is analog drums and sampled cymbals. But this was their first all-sampled machine.
Right.
But some of the samples actually sound quite like some of the cymbals from their early machines.
So they might have sampled some of their analog drum machines. Interesting.
Very much used by house music.
That's where I know it from.
Exactly. And what's unique about it is, for the day, this grid pattern sequencer. So it's typical 808 style. You know, when you start it playing, you know, it goes along, but. The pattern,
but you can see
the rhythm, which is so.
Which compared with, say, this here, the Drumulator with its two LEDs.
So very nice machine. Separate outputs, volume control. Very nice.
Yeah.
So that's
Wonderful. So we've got the whole history of drum machines here. Thank you very much for coming,
very
Dave. Thank you. We're here with Dr. Alan Ip. And tell us what's going on here with these two wonderful looking machines.
Sure. Well, this is my favorite synthesizer. So I every time I got an opportunity to buy one, I'll just get crazy and sell all my stuff.
Right. So you don't have a house anymore or anything like that, but you do have two ARC 2600s.
Yeah, I have to walk more and then take the transit. Anyway, this is this one I got from United States about maybe 20 years ago.
Right.
And I got it from a shop in the United States, and it was pretty good. It's not the best condition, but it works. And
it looks beautiful to me. Yeah.
It sounds crazy. Mm-hmm. And then I think around a year later, I found this one.
Yeah.
This one has an even more interesting story. Actually, this one is nearly brand new when I got it.
I mean, it looks like it was made last week.
Yeah.
I mean, how old is it?
This one, actually, I think we produced in around 77, 78. Yeah.
Good Lord, does the maths? It's nearly 50 years old.
Yes.
Good heavens.
And this one maybe 2 or 3 years earlier than this one.
It's true.
Yeah, because this one, they got problem with the filter.
Yeah.
The other company, Moog Synthesizer, sent a sue them. And then they changed the design. And
right. Okay.
That's the story I've heard.
Yeah.
Anyway, this one has been sitting in a school for ages. Mm-hmm. And because at a point, once upon a time, they tried to enter both the musician market, art, and also the educational market. And then they tried to target the school and university because it's very intuitive, and then you can use it to teach children how the sound is made, and play with it. So both, I think a lot of professional musicians love it. At the same time, they also open up a new market for the school and education.
Yes.
And this one is where I got it from. This one has been sitting in the school in the storage for ages. They never even open it.
Oh, so that's why it looks so new. It's because it is basically new.
Yeah, basically new.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
When the school got budget, they probably buy everything they can, right?
Yeah,
they never really open it up. So
and maybe whatever teacher was responsible for getting that left, and no one ever used it. Yeah,
they just want to buy some toys for themselves, and they never use it. So anyway, I got it from California through eBay, and when I got it, it was brand new. I was so excited. But it was getting even more expensive these days. So I was quite lucky at the time. Mm-hmm. I think comparing to 15, 20 years ago, it probably 5 times the price I pay.
Right.
Now,
wow.
I mean, yeah.
Dare I ask? If I wanted one of these now, what would it cost me?
Well, this.
Obviously, you tell me one of these at a mate's rate, but
just the stock market price, right? Mm-hmm. I think easily in pounds, I think easily close to 10 grand.
10 grand.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. If you're lucky, you can get maybe 20-30% off, but if you're in a good condition, probably you have to look for those kind of money.
Fantastic.
It's very crazy.
Now, I noticed, interestingly, you don't have a keyboard plugged into it. You have something different. So what's going on with this controller down here?
They did come with a keyboard.
Yeah.
But I just didn't bother to bring it today. Instead, I'm using a modern sequencer, a hardware sequencer. And this is quite interesting, a fairly new company. I think they have it 2-3 years mostly. I just got it a few months ago.
Yeah.
This is from a Spanish company.
Oh, okay,
and
right.
It's very portable. It runs on batteries, and then
does it have MIDI as well?
Yes, it has MIDI.
But obviously, to a machine of this age, it's all control voltage, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you got all the CV gates, control voltage, and the gate, and also got the traditional, the old times, the clock. So it's very handy, and it's very intuitive. So I think for today and sometime when I jam at home, I would love to use it. For example, I can just hit the. Make sure I don't blow up everybody. So. Well, I didn't program it, but some musician or creative people programmed it. But anyway, you can see everything. You can see the notes very intuitively. And you can also. Yeah, you got an idea. So it's It's interesting to use like the modern technology to play with the old sound. I think that's the dream setup for me. Because I'm kind of sick of the very old kind of programming and sequencer. But now I can use, new technology in terms of programming. But I still get the old sound, some of the best sound I can get.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I mean, thank you very much for bringing both these beautiful machines here today.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
It's my honor. Thank you so much.
See you next year. Take care, Alan. We're here with Paul, who's got a wonderful setup here. Now, this isn't an Atari.
No, it's my Amiga from this Amiga 600 from the 90s.
Is this your original childhood Amiga?
My second ever computer. The first was an MSX. Very excited when I got this, but actually I didn't use it at all for MIDI sequencing at the time. This is quite something I've just been learning about today for this. I thought I'd give it a try. I read that bars and pipes is the best there is.
And that's what this is, right? I'd heard of that. Yeah.
Nothing works like you'd imagine. Like no amount of modern MIDI sequencing will help you.
This ain't Cubase, is it?
It ain't Cubase. So, but we're sort of getting our heads around it today, and I've done some sequencing and some recording and even some editing, and it's very, very powerful. It's almost. If you imagine plugins you use today, they're MIDI plugins that you can drop onto the line. We've got quantizer plugins there, something for choosing your program there, and you've basically got this chain in to out with your MIDI sequencer data.
It's quite advanced, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's pages for editing and mixing as well, so it is quite an advanced sequencer.
So the Amiga doesn't have MIDI sockets, unlike the Atari, which famously why the Atari got used for so much. So how do we get MIDI out of an Amiga then?
It's just a serial, it's a third-party device here. There's lots of different ones out there. I think this was a fairly popular one. Next to it, I've got an audio device as well that goes in the parallel. That does 8-bit sampling, should you want.
Okay.
And then that just gives you two outputs, which we got going to our mid-90s home studio.
Yeah.
Our theme.
I mean, I must admit, this thing here kind of attracts my attention because this is, again, not your typical synthesizer, is it? This is a kind of home keyboard from the 90s, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was this range, they tried to add some editability to the sounds.
Yeah.
We're only really using it as a sequencer. We've done a few little overdubs and things to 4-track, but at the moment we've got a MIDI out coming there, going into the Amiga.
So unusually for a home keyboard, this has MIDI.
Yeah, and can receive MIDI.
Right, okay.
So it can be used, it can be integrated into a pro or semi-pro MIDI setup if you wanted to. And the sounds are pretty good as well. I don't know if that's it triggering the JV1010, which is a classic mid-90s. We got the Yamaha effects processor as well, doing stuff as well. So at the moment I think that is the effect. So that's triggering the JV. I think if I want that, I have to.
Oh,
that's
and this
the
is
internal.
Oh, that's not too bad, is it?
Not bad for an organ bass.
No,
really. And there's plenty of other good sounds in there as well.
So I mean, it says digital synthesizer. Is it an FM?
I think it's a mix of FM and wavetable. I think it.
Right.
But I don't know too much about it. But I think it's basically got some sampling, some FM, and it sort of splices them together to give you the sound. So some don't really know where you're getting what you're getting where.
Okay. Now, this is no digital audio workstation, is it? This is how we used to do it, wasn't it? With a 4-track tape recorder.
Yeah, we've got a little history of Tascams here. We've got a Tascam 4-track and a Tascam 8-track. 8-track, sadly, is only working as a mixing desk today. A rather crucial gear broke just yesterday.
No.
So.
Would it do 8-track to a standard audio cassette?
Yeah.
Astonishing.
So this was a mid-90s design. This, I think, was more late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
So this was a big step forward. You could do an entire production. I mean, you can with the 4-track as well.
Yeah. Plenty of things were done on 4-track, but interesting to see an 8-track audio cassette driven thing. That's all. It's the end of that that kind of world of technology before we went digital.
Digital, yeah. And after that, they started doing crazy things like running similar devices, but with zip disks and mini disks.
Yeah.
It's a sort of strange era when the PC wasn't quite powerful enough for everyone. But it didn't last long, and then everyone was just on a computer.
Yeah.
So we've done a sequence on here. If I play
let's hear.
So this is running a bit of micro modular, a bit of JV, and also this Roland here. This Roland thing is
awesome.
absolutely nuts. It's a kind of drum machine, bass machine, but sequenceable effects. It's sort of this hybrid mishmash of so much stuff.
These were produced for DJs, weren't they? They weren't for the kind of the professional music market.
But
they're a bit of a bargain now, aren't they? Because they can do a lot of really clever stuff, but they don't have the kind of the cachet of the more expensive Roland stuff.
Yeah, I think they made an error going down the DJ route because I think they're more of a synth that a producer would want to use.
Yeah.
And the fact you can sequence, it's the sort of thing now you'd be drawing the steps in.
Yeah.
But the idea that it's all tactile on faders.
Would this be 16?
Yeah,
things,
16 steps. So if I have to give it a bit of a MIDI clock. So you can hear the cutoff frequencies being adjusted every step.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got a bit of a sort of a backing track going, and then we put that down to tracks 1 and 2 of the So if I pull that down, they're on tape. There we go. So this is where we started. You're gonna hear similar. I think I'll bring the bass in a second. And then we did an overdub of this part here, like a little bell part. That should come in now. And then we did another sort of choir pad, which comes in.
Awesome. Oh, I am whisked back to my bedroom in 1990 here.
So we ran that. That's used to have 4 tracks up.
Yeah.
So we then bounced that down to mini disc. Regular mini disc. That was luxurious because it's a digital bounce. We're bouncing digitally rather than to an analog tape. Then I scoot forward a little bit on the tape to here.
Oh, by the way, have you built this up today? You've been sitting here.
Yeah. This is
fantastic.
today's little project. So you've got to set everything up and then learn how to use half the stuff and then start. This is today's one. Tomorrow we may do another little song if it's any better. So those 2 tracks then bounce down onto one and 2. And I've just laid down a sort of bongo fill here, which I think should come.
Oh yeah, I can hear that.
There we go. So slowly building it up.
Yeah.
And then we can bounce it down again.
Through digital it won't be too degraded.
Yeah, you could do it a couple of times.
Well, it's great. You have whisked me back to the 90s. That's awesome. I remember all this stuff. Yeah, thank you very much, Phil. Thank you. I'm so impressed. It's lovely.